it's Jess. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's cozy Christmas vlog. If you are like me, you are feeling a little bit depressed and anxious lately. The end of the year has not been going super great. I'm very nervous about how things in America are going to potentially change next year. I'm gonna be real, I've been depressed. We are going to do something about that. I'm going to try to boost my mood a little bit. Obviously, decorating for Christmas and reading Christmas stories is not a cure for depression. I'm not trying to say it is by any means. However, I would like to not feel so shit. So I'm gonna do some things that hopefully will boost my mood this week. In this vlog, I plan on reading two things. First of all, I'm going to read A Christmas Carol, which I have never read before. I ordered a copy of that and it honestly is supposed to be here today. And then I also want to read a Christmas romance. My plan at the moment for the Christmas romance is I specifically wanted something sapphic, and I think I'm going to read, I think it's called Kiss Her Once for Me. I'll put it up on the screen, but basically I bought it on Kindle for 50 cents. That's a good deal. So I am gonna give that one a try. It's a fake dating where the girl that's fake dating, she falls in love with the boy's sister. I read a Christmas romance last year that was basically the exact same premise and I loved it. So we're gonna see if we can get a repeat performance. But this should be fun. I've never read A Christmas Carol before and I always say that I want to get into classics more and then I never do. So we'll start small. This is a pretty short one. So welcome to the vlog. This week we are going to do everything in our power to boost our mood. We're going to embrace the Christmas spirit. I'm going to try to make this the coziest, most festive week possible. I'm going to start with A Christmas Carol. It should be here later today, so I'm going to read that. And the first thing that we have to do this week is decorate for Christmas. Hopefully the next clips after this will be me putting up all of my Christmas decorations and our trees. I will talk to you later. Welcome to the vlog. Hello, good morning. If my makeup looks like crap, I just finished a 7.5 hour long stream, so that's why I need to go wash it off. I wanted to do an update for A Christmas Carol. I finished chapter 1 or act 1, whatever it's called, so not really much has happened so far. Basically, Scrooge has been a big old grump, and then he has been now visited by the ghost of his old business partner, who is basically like, hey, I'm being punished because I was crappy in life and you're about to be haunted for the next 3 nights, and if you don't listen to them and change your ways, you're gonna have the same punishment as me after you die because you're also living a crappy life. So that's basically all that's happened. I feel like at this point most people are aware of the story of A Christmas Carol, so I don't need to go too much into it. But I will say 2 things. First of all, I didn't realize that it was a little bit more horrifying than I expected. The ghost of Scrooge's like ex-business partner, he's shows up at his house and like comes through the door and he's like, ooh. And then he has this like scarf or like bandage or something like wrapped around his head like this, and he takes it off and his entire jaw falls off. And I'm like, first of all, kudos, that is amazing showmanship, but also it's like more gruesome than I thought it was gonna be. Not like horror at all, I just didn't expect that. But like also it's so dramatic because he's a ghost. Like he has to want his entire jaw to fall off. How dramatic is it to go to your only friend's house and to like unwrap your head and have your jaw fall off? So dramatic. This book is so unserious. It's so funny. But like also it's hilarious. This book is hilarious. Okay, it starts off like the very first page of this book is so funny. I'm gonna like find it and read it for you. Literally the first sentence of this starts, Marley was dead to begin with. There's no doubt whatever about that. And then like it goes down and said, old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Mind, I don't mean to say that I know of my own knowledge what there is particularly dead about a doornail. I might have been inclined myself to regard a coffin nail as the deadest piece of ironmongery in the trade. But the wisdom of our ancestors is in the simile, and my unhallowed hands shall not disturb it, or the country's done for. You will therefore permit me to repeat emphatically that Marley was as dead as a doornail. But yeah, it's just been surprisingly humorous. So that's all I have to say about like the first little part of this. I don't know if I'm gonna do an update after every single part because I mean the whole thing is I think only like 120 pages or something like that. I'm gonna go wash my makeup off now and gonna go read some more, and I will talk to you later. Check it out. For those of you who don't know, I have Echo here, by the way, with me, so if he tries to jump in here, you've been warned. But for those of you who don't know, every year when Book Outlet does their Black Friday sale, I place an order. Book Outlet is a Canadian company, but if you do $50, they give free shipping to the US. Shipping from Canada to the US is a lot more expensive than shipping from Canada to Canada. So every year I place an order and I try basically to get as close to $50 as I can. Like obviously I have to go over it. This year I did $50.90 and I got all of these books. I'm very, very excited. Look at them. I picked up these two classics. I'm not necessarily trying to like collect this science fiction masterworks like set. However, both of these were like $4 and I have never read either of them, so I wanted to just add them to my list that never ends of classics that I haven't read. I also picked up The Silver Blood Promise, which is a book one in a series. I'm not gonna lie, at one point I knew what the premise was. I read the synopsis before I place this order, but I've already forgotten what the synopsis is, so I'm sorry, but this is high fantasy. I found a backlist of Stephen Graham Jones that I have not read, which is absolutely fantastic. Cannot wait to read this. I would eventually like to read every single thing Stephen Graham Jones has ever written. He is my favorite horror author, so very excited to see this. Also very excited for a T. Kingfisher. This is about like a changeling girl named Toad who puts a curse on either like a princess or a castle. I think it's like a twist on like the Sleeping Beauty with like the thorns and like the curse and prick your finger and stuff. So I'm really excited to see what T. Kingfisher does with that. It's gonna be so good. I also picked up a copy of The First Binding. So first of all, I did not realize that this is so huge.
Um, I thought it was like a normal standard, like 500-page fantasy book. It's like over 800 pages. But the second book for this is already out, so if I do like it, and I think it's only going to be a trilogy, people say that this is like for fans of, oh my god, The Name of the Wind, which, like, listen, I have my issues with the second book in that series, but I loved the first book in the series, and I've heard multiple people compare this to that, so very, very excited. That's literally the reason I got it. I mean, also because it was $6. So, do I know the plot? Absolutely not, but that was enough. And then more books for my vampire collection. I'm always buying more vampire books, and I love when I can get them for cheap. So here is a book haul. This is me failing my goal to read my physical TBR. So I hope you guys enjoyed this.
Hello, good morning. Reading update time because I finished A Christmas Carol. It's a good Christmassy time. I do think I'm gonna rate it 3 stars. It's a little hard for me to talk about, to be honest, because I feel like, first of all, I don't really need to talk about the plot. It's like 100 pages and everybody knows what the plot is. Like, it's not like there was really anything that was going to be a surprise for me. You know, I may never have like read this, but I have consumed this story before in various like TV shows and movies and things like that. Nothing in here was like a surprise to me, but I enjoyed it. It was very, very Christmassy. It definitely put me in the Christmas mood. There were a couple times where, like, despite the fact that it's only like 100 and some odd pages, where I was like, Charles, you're getting a little too descriptive here. There were a couple moments where I was like, speed it up, get to the point, Charles. It's fine. It's a classic. I kind of expected it to be pretty wordy. I think that if I had to say the third, well, technically like the fourth ghost, but like the Ghost of Christmas Future was probably my favorite part of the story. First of all, it's like the most interesting ghost because like it doesn't really speak, also is kind of like meant to look like death. It's also like, remember, it's like the Ghost of Christmas Future, so it's like Scrooge's future. And I think that the dynamic of Scrooge being in denial that in the future he's dead, and like seeing how his death affects people around him, and then slowly coming to the realization that like he is dead in this future, is, I think it was like really, really well done. And that was definitely my favorite part to read. However, if I had to meet one of the ghosts myself, it would definitely be the Ghost of Christmas Present, because the other ones were scary. Like, they were creepy ghosts. I'm not even gonna lie, they were. I enjoyed it. I see why people like this little story. So now we're gonna move on to my ebook, which is Kisser Ones for Me. I think today is going to be a reading day, so hopefully I can check in a couple hours when I finished, like, I don't know, the first quarter of this book or something like that. So later. Hello. It is several hours later, and I did not make nearly as much progress as I thought in this book. I just keep getting distracted. Like I mentioned, my mental health has not been great, so my ability to focus is just like really, really struggling. I'm like, I don't know, somewhere between 25% and a third of the way through this book. I forgot to check to see what my Kindle said. Basically, we've kind of only gotten like the setup of this book so far. So we're following the main character, Ellie, and she is a hot mess. She moved to Seattle like a year and change ago to work at this animation studio because she is an animator. She has her master's degree. It's supposed to be her dream job. Due to budget cuts, they let her go from her position. So now she is working as a barista at this coffee place, and she is just really struggling with life. She doesn't have very many friends because despite the fact that she's been there for a year, she is very introverted and has like a lot of social anxiety. And she has a lot of like student loans. She has a lot of bills, and she's just struggling. Her apartment's pretty shitty. Her job is pretty crappy. So things are not going great for her. She also seems to have a really, really toxic relationship with her mother. It seems like her mother basically just like uses her to like get money from her, which she doesn't really have in the first place. And what we find out is that Ellie also does art online. She has like a webtoon that she's been working on, but she also did a webtoon a year ago because the previous Christmas, it's like a week before Christmas when we get into the book, or like 2 weeks, something, it doesn't matter. The previous year, she spent like Christmas basically falling in love with this woman named Jack over the course of one day. The next morning, after she spends this one day falling in love with this woman, something happens and we don't know what happens. We only get like the beginning of the story so far. Like basically every few chapters, there'll be like an edition of the webtoon. And the way it seems in the book though, it seems that like she put it, like it's a comic, because that makes sense, like a webtoon, but the way it's in the book, it's not actually drawn out, it's written as text, so it is like a little bit confusing that way, but that's not the point. So we don't know what happened between her and this woman, we just know that like she fell in love. At the time, she was like still working at the animation studio, and she had only been in Seattle for like a couple months, so everything was like still really, really fresh and new. So when you first meet Ellie in the webtoon, she's kind of a completely different person than like when you meet her in like the actual story of present day, which I do find really interesting. The coffee shop that Ellie is a barista at, the like deed, the building, whatever, is owned by this like corporation company, and the landlord that they deal with is the son of the CEO of that company, and he is like a couple years older than Ellie, and he comes in one day and they have like casually flirted, I guess that's the implication, a couple times. Ellie is like painfully shy and will not make a move. I actually think that like the anxiety representation is pretty good. There's been a couple moments where I'm like, yep. I know that everyone's experience with anxiety is different, and I don't like perfectly align with like the way Ellie's is in the book, but there are definitely like a lot of significant moments where I'm like, yeah, I know exactly how that feels. Ellie's friend, who is her best friend in Seattle, basically kind of manipulates the situation in like a good way so that Ellie ends up needing like a ride and blah blah. Anyways, long story short, Ellie agrees to go with the landlord and get drinks. Over the course of the night, they get drunk, and the landlord reveals that his grandfather has just passed away, and that was like common knowledge, but he reveals that as a stipulation of the will, he is set to inherit $2 million, but he can only inherit that if he is married. They get drunk together and they agree that they are going to get married, and he's going to give her $200,000, which is a very significant sum of money. I would marry someone for $200,000, like I'm just saying. So they agree that like basically they're gonna get married and just stay married for like a year, I think is their plan. He doesn't want his family to know about this stipulation in the will, and so he's just like, okay, we'll get married, we'll stay married for a year. Like honestly, I would take that deal if I was a struggling artist. And then she basically leaves with Andrew, and they go to spend the week of Christmas with her family. And once she gets there, she realizes that Andrew's sister is the woman that she fell in love with over the course of the day. Ellie is not my favorite main character, I will say. She is, here's the thing, I like messy main characters, but she's messy in a way that like makes me feel real bad for her. I was really, really hoping that there would be a lot of like fluffiness and escapism, her life situation and how just like truly pathetic it is, which like sounds mean to say, but like it is a pathetic situation. Like it's hitting a little too close to what a lot of people are having to deal with, and it's not providing me with the amount of escapism that I actually wanted. Also, like listening to her conversations with her mom is super frustrating. Her mom sucks real hard. Like it's like getting a reaction out of me that I don't normally get, like listening to the way her mom is like emotionally abusive to her. So like honestly, content warnings for like emotionally abusive parents. But that's where I'm at with that. I just wanted to do a little update about it. I don't have any really strong feelings so far. I'm hoping that the Christmasness of the book will like really be amped up. Ellie sees that Andrew's mom has like a whole schedule for how the week is gonna go, and it's like jam-packed with Christmas activities. So I'm hoping that we're gonna get to the fluff. Obviously, we already know what's gonna happen. Like it's a romance. Like we already know. So it'll be interesting to see how we get from point A to point B. I'm probably not gonna do another update today, but hopefully I will finish this book tomorrow. So later. Yes, hello. I lied. It is in fact the same day. It is my bedtime, so I'm gonna try to make this fast and I hope it's coherent because I'm very tired. We have some bad news. I'm DNFing Kiss Her Once for me. I just can't, I can't do it anymore. Okay, so I made it 60% in. Basically, from the last update when I was like, I don't know, I think I was like 28% or something like that in. I just like the book has gotten like progressively less enjoyable. I do think that this book could work really, really well for other people. This is a book that I picked up just for enjoyment and for escapism, and I'm not enjoying this book. I was reading it and I was like, what do you mean I have 100 more pages? And I was like, okay, you can't read this. Like you have to just put it down. I think part of the reason is I just don't care. I mentioned before that like Ellie is not necessarily my favorite main character. It's just like honestly getting really tedious to be in her head. And I do like the anxiety representation. It felt very validating for me. But like also at the same time, when I'm currently dealing with anxiety in my real life, I don't necessarily need that in my romance novels. And I do think that it would be less tedious if I was not dealing with anxiety. Currently dealing with anxiety and then also having like a portrayal of it in a book that hits real close to how I personally feel, it's so tedious. And like it's tedious for multiple reasons. But so like there's first of all there's that. Second of all, I don't really care about any of the characters. The only characters I like are Jack and Andrew's two grandmothers, like their grandmother and then their step grandmother. But they have like 20 seconds of screen time in the book. Like they're such minor side characters. They absolutely cannot carry a book. Of the main characters, I do not care. Like I said, it's tedious. Not only does like the anxiety like wear on me, but like also I'm getting like triggered by the way Ellie's mom treats her. Here's the thing. Toxic relationships are real, like regardless of whether it's like family, friend, like romantic partner, and I understand how difficult they are to break away from, especially when it's been like years and years of emotional abuse. And in this case, it's Ellie's mother and her father was not in the picture. So like Ellie has been basically emotionally abused for like 20 years by her mother. And so like breaking that cycle is very difficult. And I have a lot of empathy for that situation. However, reading how Ellie's mother treats her and how quickly Ellie just caves to her and just like avoids the problem, and like it's actually getting a bit triggering for me in the real sense of like, I cannot read this right now. So there's also that on top of like the anxiety being a bit triggering, and I'm sure like the two of those are compounding on each other. So the other thing that's kind of making this like super tedious to read is that Ellie's dealing with her anxiety and she's very, very obviously still into Jack, and it's making all of the interactions that she has very like loaded and a little bit awkward and weird. That's all understandable. But we reach this moment, and this is the part where I was like, I can't read this anymore, where they're at a bar and it's Ellie and Andrew and Jack and Jack's best friend. So the four of them are at this bar together, and Ellie in her head is like, I just have to make it through the night without kissing Jack. And it's like, what do you mean you just have to make it through the, like, just don't kiss her? I'm like, you're a 27-year-old adult. Like, just don't kiss her. Just don't do it. And I was like, okay, that's enough. Like, this is too much. This is too tedious. I don't care about these people. I don't care if they end up together. Like, I just gotta put the book down. Yay for this vlog ending on a failure. I'm so sorry. The whole point of this vlog was that I was supposed to be helping my mental health and making myself happy, and this book did the opposite of that. It's a loss on the book, it's a loss on the vlog, and you know, it's a loss in my real life. So just L's all around. I guess we'll just move on. Thank you for spending time with me today. I'm so sorry that this is how we're ending it, but I still appreciate you being here. I hope that this was even a little bit amusing to you. If you enjoyed this hot mess of a video, please consider subscribing. If you're reading any Christmas books, let me know what you're reading, and I hope you stay safe this week. I hope you stay warm, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.